Good morning. It is 10:45 on Wednesday, December 28th, and it has taken me all morning to work up the nerve to read over my manuscript in its current state. I had plenty of other things to work on this morning, and just went ahead and let myself be distracted. And I have actually been a little bit nervous about reading through since I've thought about doing it for the last couple days and have been putting it off. And really, I think it's kind of the point where you start to read through the manuscript and see, is what you're writing really hanging together in the way that you want? How much more work is really going to be needed to bring the manuscript into something that's going to be publishable? And that's a scary point, especially if you have a large chunk of writing like I do right now. So I'm facing my fears. I am going to start reading through the manuscript. That is the only thing I'm going to do this morning. I'm actually going to try not to even write very much as I'm reading through. I might make like some little notes here or there, but I really just want to spend the time reading straight through it and seeing, how is it hanging together? Is there spots that are overlapping with each other? Are things making sense? Are there large gaps in the manuscript that need to be filled in? And just to really, again, familiarize myself with some of the earlier pieces too that I've written a while ago, and that were not worked on during this period of the last few days. So it is day 5, morning time, and I'm going to be spending the next little chunk of time here just reading through the manuscript and seeing what I have. Facing fears. That's what day 5 is all about. All right. It is now 12:15. I have read through everything I have so far for the book manuscript. And while I went through, I actually kind of pulled out some of the references and things that I had been putting in each chapter because that's eventually going to go in its own list, in its own document. So, and that helped me to see kind of how much research is already integrated into the chapter drafts. Right now, I have about 4 pages of references. To give you a sense of scale, for my last book, I ended up with 23 pages of references. So still really early days in terms of layering in the citations I want to include here. One of the things that kind of this read through affirmed for me is there's 2 chapters right now that need to be combined. And so I went ahead and did that. I just kind of did a copy and paste job to put them into one file so that I can work on them together. And that was helpful. I was thinking about that yesterday and I wasn't sure, but when I read through, I think they need to be put together and combined. The other thing I'm thinking about a lot is the different kinds of examples that I need to be including throughout the book to make things more relevant for people and to really it's kind of tough because I don't want to include a lot of visual elements in the book because they don't render very well in print form. So what it ends up meaning is there's a lot of like websites that people could go look at, but I don't want to put in too many of those because they aren't necessarily evergreen. So to show like a set of examples or a collection of examples, I probably need to put that on the book's bonus feature website. So that's something else that I was thinking about as I was going through the draft was kind of just where to send people so that they could look at something basically for each chapter. And then finally, the other thing I'm thinking about is at the beginning of each chapter, I have a recommended reading list based on the topic, and a lot of those readings are linked, and they're not books or academic articles. They're blog posts or smaller essays or resources that I think people would be interested in. And I also think that's something I want to move to the book's bonus features and maybe even put in kind of like a syllabus format so that people could follow like a syllabus as they're going through the book and have things more easily linked in an online kind of website space. So there's a lot of kind of logistical issues that are different for this book than the other two I've written, and I'm thinking a lot about those as I move on to the next steps of working on the book. So I'm thinking at this point that I'm going to spend, because I'm about halfway through my process at this point, I think what's going to be most helpful to me is to actually take one chapter at a time and think about what kind of research I need to do for that particular chapter, what's going to be kind of the most helpful in terms of examples, and also just to kind of think about structurally for each chapter, are there ways that it could be organized better in terms of including activities, boxes, figures, tables that would be more helpful to work people through the process that I'm advocating throughout the entire book. So lots to think about. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to spend my afternoon today. I'm going to take a break, grab something to eat, and kind of think about where my energy is best going to be spent, whether that's doing a little bit of research and reading or making that more directed, looking at one chapter at a time. So glad that I did the reading through, still thinking about what I want to do next, but I will offer an update later on this afternoon about what I decide. Thanks for following along and watching this video about day 5, the morning session of my 10-day writing retreat, working on my third book about managing your professional academic identity online. Thanks for watching.